Hey, glad to welcome everyone back live to our webcast here at the 2016 General Conference. And we have with us tonight Dr. Jim Dunn as our guest, fresh off the stage, right out of the crowd.
Yeah, that's right. It's good to be with you. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for being with us. Tonight was a big night for your department and the announcement of the One City Initiative. Talk a little bit about that. We just had a great service, but what is the One City Initiative?
Yeah, so everybody has a city, and everybody is very familiar with people who need Christ. And so what happens is in our culture, our cities control it, and it's very evident in different pieces of culture that are formed around our cities. Our cities then spread, and there are people that just really need Christ. And so one of the statistics that I quoted tonight was the fact that in the next 15 years, some scholars think that the movement of people, so people who are moving, will move to a city of 250,000 or more.
Yeah.
And that percentile is 90% of that movement is going to move to a city of 250,000 or more.
Wow.
And we have ministries, great ministries in our cities. There's no question about that. And we have big heritage in our cities from days gone by. But the also other fact is that we've left our cities in many different places, or we've allowed some of those things transplant our churches out where we should have stayed there perhaps and give them over to ethnicities that are more, affinity friendly to people. So it's something that we really need to continue to push the righteous into the city. And quoted a verse of Proverbs 29, one of my favorite verses, and that is when the righteous thrive, or when the righteous are in control, the people rejoice. When the wicked are in power, the people really suffer and groan.
Yeah. One of the great stories about cities just over the last few years has been Jason Butler.
Right.
I remember, we did an interview with him 2-3 years ago. It was one of those Heath had set up, and I was so surprised by the interview. He actually has been instrumental in getting people who moved to the suburbs to come back into the city to make a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know in South Carolina you've been down visiting us, but when I moved to Greenville, South Carolina, the greater Greenville area was, a little under 200,000. Now it's approaching 500,000.
Wow.
And so the urban areas continue to sprawl, and by God's grace, we need a presence there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have great ministries in cities. And all we're asking is that God would move us even more. And had some folks on the stage tonight, and one of our guests and other people that you'll interview that are really feeling that, sensing that, obeying that, and moving their households to places that really are cross-cultural. And a lot of anthropology going on before they even have their first service to try to understand how that place works and what people think about in that place and how to connect with them. And so just a tremendous, really something that inspires me to watch them take their whole families and anything that they left behind. Yeah, and put their kids in those schools and to go into places and apartment buildings that one of our planters in Manhattan told me a story about getting, I think, 4 or 5 parking tickets on the day they moved in because they didn't know where to park the truck.
Oh, man.
And so, just the challenges of the city. And he was laughing about it. And, I told him, I said, I want to help you with those tickets. So I don't know the chief of police, but I do know how to write a check. So there are all kinds of elements that we just have to relearn how to do ministry. But thank God to celebrate the ministers tonight with the 40 and 50 and 60 and 70 years of ministry, and to be able to publicly thank them and express to them there's no intent on our part, my part, anybody's part, to change the message.
I thought that was good.
But we do need to change our methods. And reaching the city is actually going in places just like some of our missionaries go across the seas, and really need to learn how it is that you communicate cross-culturally.
Yeah.
So 12 years ago, you stepped into the newly formed Spiritual Formation Department. 4 years ago, it was changed to Church Multiplication and Discipleship. And, I think I told you a lot, thank you so much for your leadership in that. And you're still going to be doing a lot of the same things, investing in people, but you're transitioning to Wesley Investment Foundation.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about how people can get in touch with you, because your ministry really is to help churches. So what are you going to be doing for WIF coming up?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. When I was 12, I was called to 3 things. I knew it. I was at a youth convention. 3 things, very specific things. One of them was ministry. The other one was to be engaged in the youth movement. And the other one was to help pastors and churches. And I had a couple of wise people laugh at me a little bit and said, just do ministry and don't worry about those other 2 things. And this actually is a culmination of a lot of things, a lot of experiences, and I'm just trying to be obedient to the call of God in my life. And I know I'm supposed to help pastors and churches. So you think of Wesleyan Investment, you think of financial pieces that they have offered, and church loans, and church extension back in the day, and property issues. And they have sensed in their ministry, it's not a separate thing, but they have sensed this great need for helping churches get stronger and getting to the next level of effectiveness. And some churches think that a loan or a building or a piece of property or relocation or whatever will fix all their problems. And I've compared it, even though sometimes it's painful for people to listen to this analogy, that it's kind of like a married couple that thinks a baby's going to fix their marriage. And it actually just complicates a whole lot of stuff. And without getting into anybody's business there, it's just simply an analogy that a building doesn't make a church. It doesn't fix the church. And so you get all of those pieces together, they have sensed a real need to come into some places that aren't quite ready for a loan, aren't quite ready for a building. Maybe they've been delayed in getting a loan. Maybe it's just an initiative to say, hey, would you like to get to the next level of effectiveness? They're offering my services as an investment of Wesleyan Investment to go in, love on those pastors, work with them, take a look at their operations, take a look at their strategy, to really get involved in revitalization in a fresh way. And it is a ministry of WIF to the church, and it doesn't cost the church other than for assessment tools and perhaps some retreats that we'll have them lead and leadership development pieces. My fees and all of whatever it takes to get me on site with a local pastor is something that Wesleyan Investment is investing into that process. Nice. So it's a gift back from Wesleyan Investment, like they normally do in church grants and other pieces and helping a church get a building. They sense a very keen need to help churches become more healthy and stable and stronger. And it is something that I'm just really pleased to be part of. I know it's part of family, I get that, but all Wesleyans are in the same family. And I've been honored to serve the church at the national office and the world headquarters there. I was very humbled 12 years ago to be elected by this body, and it's been a great place for me and a great place to grow up and to learn and develop, and I'm very grateful for that. I just know in the last year or so, I sensed God leading me in a different direction. I didn't know what it was going to be. Right. And I love pastors, and I love local churches.
Yeah.
Very good.
And so, Jim shared the story about helping pay a parking ticket. Maybe you want to help a church planter that may have an unexpected parking ticket. Wesleyan.org/OneCity is where you can invest. You can invest in this initiative. We're having church planters go all around the country, and throughout this post show, we're going to be interviewing a lot of them. So my thanks to Jim for being with us. Thank you for a great service tonight, and we've got another guest coming up. So Tony and Kim.
Yeah. So listen, as we transition out here, just bear with us because our guests are coming across. They may get in the view of the camera, so bear with us there. Listen, we put out a challenge last night. Go ahead, Corey, come across here. We put out a challenge last night that if you're watching the General Conference live, take a picture, show us the setting. And so some of you, again, have come through. Big shout out to Beth Peterson. She's got a picture here. You can see it up on the screen. The family viewing party, she called it. This is from last night, but we just got it up tonight. How about Priscilla Hammond? And on this picture here, I am told, now I didn't see it, I've got a small picture. I'm told if you look really close, you may actually see Priscilla's toes in this picture. Then there's Stephen and Sabrina Hudson. Hey, these are people from our church, and so big shout out to them. And then also Corey, let me get this right, Hernsberger, I think. I hope I have that right. He's watching there, and so we thank them. And finally, Tim Kirkpatrick has a picture. So everyone, thanks for doing that. Continue to do it. For those of you in the chat room, just appreciate you so much engaging, being involved. As we're interviewing people, one of the people that was up on stage tonight was Kim Gladden, one of our co-hosts here. So, Kim, let's talk to you for just a moment.
All right. Okay.
Zion Quest.
Christian
Fellowship.
Zion Quest Christian Fellowship. Yeah.
Yeah. So, talk about some of the challenges, but also opportunities.
Well, I think they're linked together. You know, when I think about this, an image came to mind. It's not pretty, but of a double transplant. You know how they have a heart and lung transplant?
Sure.
We're trying to do a church in the city that is also multi-ethnic. So, but I don't see it as a deficit. I see it, I'm not entering this with a deficit mentality because I'm so excited. Because I grew up in the city, I see the city full of resources and untapped potential. So I'm excited about what's going to rise to the surface and what's going to, come about. So
yeah, I would think, some people are moving into this city, but you were raised, you know the rhythms of the city.
I live in the city. Our church is there. I grew up there. And so I have lots of relationships. My thing is that I've been at Eastern Hills, and I've been wearing the two hats, trying to be at two churches. And I've been so busy, I've neglected the city piece. Yeah. And so the excitement for me is to now focus attention and energy on what God's doing there.
Yeah, my favorite story that you told tonight was Sparkle. And maybe share that again, just in case someone didn't hear that. I think it's a powerful story because you're not the only one that's been guilty of this, for those of us who are in ministry.
Oh, sure. I was saying that I have a neighbor, and in my neighborhood, people move a lot. And a family moved in. They had a little girl, and she runs up to the car whenever I'm getting out, which is quite often. I'm in and out. And she just wants to be in relationship. And where have you been? What are you doing? What's in the bag? What's up? What groceries did you get? And one day, she just came up to me with her hands on her hips, and she said, "Do you know my name?" And I'm thinking, because she's told me several times, I'm, whoa, what is her name? What is her name? I couldn't think. I said, if you just tell me one more time, I won't forget. She said, it's Sparkle. And I thought the irony is that I've been on mission trips all around the globe. And I know children in villages all around the globe. Here's what my neighbor girl demanding to be in a relationship. And I didn't know her name. So hey, that was convicting. That was convicting.
It's powerful. It really is. So if there are people who want to partner with you through prayer and financial support, how can they get in contact with you?
Sure. ZionQuest@live.com. ZionQuest@live. ZionQuest@live.com. We're excited about partnerships, particularly if you're in this Western New York area. There's so many ways that we can do things together, and you can be a blessing, not just financial, but also through prayer and presence.
Right.
So we'd love to hear from you.
All righty. So Heath?
Hey, it's so awesome to be joined by Corey Doran, who led worship tonight, and Kingswood graduate, and now planning a church out in Portland. First of all, you shared a little bit of the story. You had quite a bit of trouble getting here. Talk a little bit about your trip to General Conference.
Well, just like I left Portland, Oregon, and I stopped in Rapid City. That's where most of the band is from, South Dakota, and so we rehearsed. And then tried to get out of town the next day, and my flight got delayed 3 times. And so then I landed. My layover was in Minneapolis, and I had 10 minutes to get to my next gate, and my gate was on the other end, and I've got my book bag and my guitar.
And Minneapolis is the worst. It's a long airport.
And there's stairs, and I'm just booking it, carrying and I'm not I haven't run, I haven't ran in a long time, right? And so I get to the gate, and it's like the moment where you get to the gate and the door is closing. It's just so, and so I didn't get it there, and then they couldn't get me out, and so I had to stay the night, and then get up at 3:30 this morning. To catch a flight to Detroit, so then I could go from there to Detroit, and then Detroit to Buffalo. And my flight at Detroit got delayed, and then my next flight got delayed, and then my last flight here, we're pulled out of the tarmac, and they're like, bad news, there's weather. And we're going to be a half an hour. And then a half an hour passed. They're like, well, we're going to be another half an hour.
No.
And they're like, well, we might not make it. So I'm texting everybody here, someone's going to have to sing tonight. But anyway, we made it. I'm on 2.5 hours sleep right now.
No.
So I'm running on adrenaline.
Which is normal.
Which is pretty normal in my life. Yeah. So.
I met Corey. He traveled with Kingswood, came to our camp there in South Carolina, so I've known him for,
that was my first camp.
Yeah, I know. So I knew Corey before the beard. The beard kind of became
before he was Corey, you knew him.
That's right. Corey, you like you said, you were in South Dakota leading worship for several years, and now there's just been this call in your heart. Talk a little bit about the pull to Portland.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it backs into my story. My family, my mom and dad were heavy in a party lifestyle when I was born. My earliest memories as a kid is coming out in my house and just it's filled with adults doing things probably kids shouldn't be around. And when I was 7, my mom and dad gave their lives to Jesus on the exact same night. And so my family, we kind of like learned about Jesus together. And I've watched like incredible healing in my own family through that and in that. And so I've always had this this deep passion and heart for people who are maybe a little further from Jesus. I think there's folks that their road to Jesus is a little longer than most. And because I feel like that was my family. It wasn't anywhere on our radar, right? And God kind of intercepted our lives, began changing us. And now, I've been in ministry from that moment, and I've got a son, and he's growing up in a Christian home, and you just begin to see that turn. And so inside of that, I've been following this like unchurched city movement for a while, but the last 10 years it's gotten a lot of press, and Portland's always been on that list, anywhere from like number 10 to number 1. It's every year it's somewhere in that area. And so Portland's always come on my radar. And then we got approached and asked if we would go and do this thing in Portland. And I said, well, by our district superintendent, Isaac Smith. And I said, well, we'll pray about it and we'll think about it and we'll see what God says. He said, well, let me put you on a plane, send you to Portland and pray. And so we were in Portland. We spent about 4 days in Portland. We walked neighborhoods and talked to locals. And I don't know if this is like theologically the right thing to do, but I told God, I was like, I want you to speak to me through a local. I don't know if that's allowed in our relationship, but that's what we're going for. And this night we were sitting up at this restaurant. We're sitting up at the bar part of the restaurant, and there was this young couple sitting next to us. My wife says, "Hey, should we talk to them?" And I was like, "Go for it." She strikes up a conversation. Well, it turns out he's a philosophy major in college and university, and she sells weed for a living. Okay, she works at a marijuana dispensary, and they have no church background and no understanding of church. And we start sharing like what we're doing there and why we're there. And in the middle of the conversation, she leans across the table and says, "You know what I think? I think you should move here and start a church," right? And so,
wow.
So I'm like, "Really, Lord? Like the weed lady? This is your chosen method?"
Awesome.
And
what a great
and
story.
so from that moment they left, and my wife and I kind of looked at each other, and we went home, and we're in church that weekend, and my wife just grabs my hand and looks at me and says, "We have to go." And I said, "I know." And
wow.
and so we're going. Isaac likes to joke that his voice wasn't strong enough. It took the weed lady. He always likes to tell me that.
You know, a great little thing is Corey's wife's name is Corey too. So
right.
So if you go to support land, I just love that. We were talking about that. Supportland.com is how you can get on Corey's mailing list.
It's actually not .com.
Oh.
It's .church.
Oh.
See, .church is the new .com. I don't know if you knew that or
that's
not.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Supportland.com.
Supportland.
.church. I messed it up.
Supportland.church. Now, I was on Facebook tonight.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage people to look up Corey on Facebook, and you're also on Twitter. What's your Twitter?
Yeah, it's my name as everything. Twitter, Facebook, Gmail.com. I have my own .com if you want to read some blog. It's all my name.
And if you want to book Corey for speaking, great speaker, great worship leader, great everything.
Any seminars on beard growing? That's a righteous beard, man.
Lots of them.
Yeah.
But on Facebook, right now you got a fundraiser going with some really, really cool T-shirts. So if you go friend him on that, it's just a great thing to do. How can people, what's the one thing you would ask people? You got maybe 7 billion people watching right now.
Maybe 7 billion.
What's the one thing you would say, this is how you could pray for us?
Yeah, right now I would say, and I'm going to pull a pastor card here and say 2 things. One thing that's heavy on my heart is the team of people that are moving with us. I feel like I get to be the pastor and I get to be the spokesman, and I get to go there to plant this church, and all these people. There's about eight of them now. They're quitting jobs. They're leaving families. They're saying goodbye to grandparents. 2 of the couples have like young kids, like really young, like under 2, and they grew up, and they're taking the kids away from the grandparents, and they're just sacrificing. Some people have looked at our life and say, we're making a great sacrifice. And if I've wept over one thing, it's these people that are coming with me. And so just pray that God just creates a path for them. They need to get jobs and find houses. And in Portland, the housing market is crazy. It's really, really nuts. You can look it up and read about it. It's really difficult to find a house in Portland, especially at affordable costs. And so those 2 things don't play nice, right? They need jobs, need a house, and those 2 things go together. And so just pray for God's provision for those people as they take a major, major step of faith in doing this. So, and then the other thing that I'd really love prayer for is our neighbors. We are in a neighborhood in North Portland called Kenton, and we're intentionally moving into that neighborhood and spending time and reaching our neighbors. Our vision is really, really clear. We want to reach our neighbors, like our actual neighbors, not this like mystical neighbor word that we that Jesus argued with the Pharisees over. You know, and we're still arguing today about that, right? And so for us, we're saying, you know what? Let's just start with our actual neighbors, the people who live next door to us. And so if you want to be praying for the people of Kenton, and that God would give us favor with them, we find opportunities and ways to build relationships in a city that is very unchurched, and I would say never churched. It's incarnational living and incarnational ministry is the way they need to be reached. They're not going to attend an event. They're not going to be impressed with some church event we put on. It's got to be relational. And so pray for our neighbors if you would.
So covenant with us to pray for Corey and his family and their church. Support.church.
Yeah.
So, hey, love you, brother.
Thank you.
Great job tonight. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Listen, this thing is keep rolling. You go get some sleep and some snacks over here.
I need some snacks.
And we got another guest
snacks.
coming up.
All right. Well, we're transitioning out again. This afternoon we had just allow us to pass people back and forth with the camera here. We had a parade of just interviews and great guests today. So, Kim, we had 5 or 6.
We did, yes.
What's one that stands out to you and why?
I think it would have to be Kristen, and I'll tell you why. That whole idea of the intersection of your life with various people.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of my story, too, with lots of different ways. And how God can speak to you, just as he spoke to our former guest through Weed Lady. God can speak to you in just multiple different ways. And so to hear her talk about the influence of maybe some people that we wouldn't necessarily think of as mentors or role models or influencers.
Yeah, it's a great part of her story.
Yeah, but you can, if you are open and humble, you can learn from anyone and any situation, and you can find how God is speaking to you, in that situation.
Yeah.
So that's probably my favorite one.
All the interviews that we did this afternoon are posted online. So she's talking about Kristen Taylor, her book Shipwrecked in L.A. Great read. Read that thing from cover to cover. It's a great narrative. And for me, it just sucked me in one page. Maybe want to read the next. Maybe want to read the next. So just take advantage of that interview and hope you'd buy her book and read it as well. Heath, who we got here?
We have with us the good Reverend Jeremy Summers,
in person, live. Look at
the director of spiritual formation for the Wesleyan Church. Jeremy, tonight, one of the things in the service is we talked about pioneers. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about the theme of that, and then I tried to listen. There have been so many. I know you had a lot to do with that video. Matt Leroy helped write some of the script for that.
Yep.
I couldn't tell if that was Morgan Freeman doing something.
Can't say.
But
contract.
But the line was, the place for renewal is here, the time for renewal is now. So just as people are watching this and they're wondering, well, what in the world are they wanting us to pioneer?
Yeah.
How would you sum that up for people?
Yeah, well, it goes back to this idea of making disciples of all nations, all places, all ages. And this whole kind of narrative is, how are we engaging the places that we're at now, but also the sphere of influence that we have here. So rather than just always going and looking past, how are we engaging the places that God has for us right in front of us? So a lot of times we pass by people where God is at work right there. So that's where the here takes place, and that's kind of the video. When you looked at Wesley, said that the time is now, but that movement really didn't happen. That multiplication didn't really take place until Asbury came on the scene.
Right.
And it was here. So it went from a few hundred to now hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
And so, yep.
Yeah, it's crazy because I don't know how much of the interview with Corey you just heard, but Heath asked him, so what's the plan of action? He said, we're going to start with our neighbors.
Yep.
Those that are right next door.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So maybe there's somebody watching, and they are reaching their community, they're reaching their neighbors, their pioneers. What kind of resources does headquarters offer to really help people become fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ? I know just recently we did the Missional Discipleship online conference. You can see all those videos at the Wesleyan Church YouTube page. But when people think, well, what does headquarters have to offer? What are some of the resources that people could tap into?
Yeah, I think when people think resources, they automatically think books. Those type of things when they hear resources. I think the one thing that we can provide more than anything are connections and networks and relationships. So rather than just saying, here's a book, which we provide resources like that, more importantly, it's like, here are relationships you need to connect with. These are the ones that are doing the work, that are engaging. And from there, you can take it even further because of those relational connections. So I would say relationships are the biggest thing that we provide.
Now, if people want to connect with you, maybe that question is about spiritual formation, how can people find you online if they want to talk to you?
Yeah.
And get to know the real Jeremy Summers.
This is dangerous.
Yeah, I know.
Why am I really here? That's to connect with me, you can email me at summersj@wesleyan.org. But another way is at Jeremy Summers on Twitter. It's probably another way to get me. Or we have a website. You and I do podcasts as well.
Yes,
also
that's
have a website called missionaldiscipleship.com. So that's another way to get connected.
And like I mentioned, we've done 2 live online conferences where the full conference and all the speakers, all of those videos are available absolutely for free on the Wesleyan YouTube page. And hey, if you're watching this and you're thinking, man, I may miss a segment tomorrow, you need to hit that subscribe button there on the Wesleyan YouTube page. Because listen, if I found out that you missed something, an important election tomorrow morning or an important devotion, it would break my heart. So Jeremy, thank you so much for your friendship,
for sure,
for all that you do. And I'm telling you, we're moving fast tonight, and I'm gonna throw it to Tony and Kim, and we got two great guests are coming, and so I'll see you guys in the morning.
Okay, we have one more transition that's going to happen. And while that's happening, I want to talk to Tony. I'm going to throw out a question to you that you threw out to me earlier.
Yeah.
We've had an awesome day. So tell me something that just impacted you from one of our guests today.
Yeah, so this whole idea of the transitions was my idea. So I've been thinking the whole time. So which one of the interviews? They were all good. I think Zach... Smara, I think I have the name right. That one was very impactful for me, and what we're doing with Immigrant Connection.
Okay.
First, in terms of, in the evangelical world, we're a very small denomination, and yet today, as in that interview, Zach was talking about other denominations. Like, you take the Nazarene Church, it's 4 times bigger than us, and I think they have 2 immigrant connections. In just a short time here, we will be the leading evangelical denomination with immigrant connections. And what I have said, we have 2 of them in South Carolina. And there is a lot of political bantering about this, and a lot of people who want to boil it down and make it sound like there are easy answers, and they're just not. They're just not easy answers. And here's what I say, that what we want to do is we want to be part of the solution. And I think also the reason I love that story is we were talking last night about Dr. Joanne Lyon.
Right, and her legacy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this is part of her legacy, where holiness and social reform, tying them together in ways that get us back to our history, but also make an impact on the community. Today, what did Zach say? That how far away are some people coming to the one and that he runs there in Indiana, southern Indiana? It was like 2 to 4 hours away.
Right, up to 4 hours away.
Yeah, I think he mentioned Louisville
Yes.
as one of the cities where someone came from. Clearly making an impact, clearly speaking to a need that is in our culture right now. And it's not going to be. I think he said, we'll let other people worry about the political stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to be the presence of Jesus and to try to make a change in people's lives. So I mean, that for me, I thought that was just a really good interview. All right, here. So we are transitioning, and we have our final guest tonight. We have Brandon. Right, okay, and Jen Peterson. So thank you so much for taking time out to be with us.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, yeah. So the journey, Dallas to Manhattan. Okay.
Yeah, we like to say the big D, the Big Apple, right?
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that journey. And when I say the journey, I'm talking like in your hearts. I mean, you don't just wake up one morning and say, hey, let's go to Manhattan.
No, you sure don't.
Yeah. Well, it was a series of conversations that we had about 15 months ago. That just sort of, we were comfortable, and we were in a house. We were living in the suburbs with our 2 cars and our dog, and doing the whole suburban thing, which is great. And there was a point at which God just grabbed our hearts, and we knew something was coming. We didn't know what it was. Actually, Jen was looking into a graduate program in New York City at the time, and she was looking at it, and we were like, you know what? We're not moving our kids, who are right now 13 and 11. We're not moving our kids to New York City for graduate school. So we kind of put it on the shelf and said, good idea, but maybe not. But it was like God wouldn't let it go with us. And so we would have conversations, and New York City would come up, and it would just our hearts would start to beat. We would watch a TV show, with New York City, and be like, oh, we feel like we're supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So finally we reached out to the district superintendents in Penn, Jersey, Carl and Anita Eastlack.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, there's a chance we could be in New York City for a couple of years. If we were, could you see us doing anything? And
wrong question to ask district superintendents. I'm just telling you right now.
Yeah.
So, and we weren't even thinking about church planting at the time.
Wow. No.
So I actually had emailed Carl on a late Saturday afternoon, and I figured he was preaching somewhere Sunday. They wouldn't be checking his email. And literally within 5 minutes, he emailed back and said, can we talk right now? So we get on the phone, and the first thing Carl says is, Brandon, I'm not surprised you're calling. And, we're just like, okay, what is happening
Our
here?
hearts just started beating. Okay, God, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he started laying out the vision for church planting, and church planting in Manhattan specifically. And we hadn't seen ourselves in that role before, but we agreed to pray about it, and we continued to just get more excited about it. Went to New York City, did a decision trip, and we just knew, talked to several church planters. We just knew God was asking us to do this. And so we sat down on that trip with Carl and Anita, and they just said, are you guys ready to plant a church in Manhattan? And we're like, no, we're not ready. But we believe God's calling us, so we're saying yes.
Jen, would you add anything to that story?
No, other than, so I grew up as an Iowa farm girl.
Oh.
And so that's part of my journey, even though I wasn't like a super stereotypical farm girl. I couldn't wait to get to the city.
Okay.
But I remember being at the gathering.
Yeah.
And this was, maybe the gathering before this last one. And I remember they started talking about urban urgency. And I was like, I will cheer you on, urban church planners. We need you. Yes, Never thought it would be us. Yeah. But, it's God, right? And when God calls, I have a friend who moved to Africa for a while, and she was like, if God calls you, you say yes, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
nice.
that's what it is. If he calls you, you say yes.
Yeah.
So
Good.
And God
even when
has
it's scary.
such a sense of humor sometimes.
Doesn't he?
So,
Yeah.
but, you know, something you mentioned tonight, you mentioned Timothy Keller and an initiative that had kind of impacted you. Can you just say a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were visiting all these church planters on our decision trip, every single one of them said you need to connect with Redeemer Presbyterian Church, with City to City, which is their church planting organization. They're doing the best job of training, coming alongside, supporting church planters. And so we reached out to that organization and applied. And essentially, when we went to New York City, they would only take us in the program if we were at least a year away from planting.
Okay.
In other words, they didn't want somebody coming in and just trying to launch right away. They wanted somebody to incubate at least for a year before they get into that phase. And so, yeah, we applied for that. And so I'm in a program right now with Tim Keller. It's 6 church planters in New York City. We meet with Tim personally once a month, and then his other staff the other 3
awesome.
weeks of the month.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of reading. It's urban ministry. It's gospel-centered ministry. And he loves having a Wesleyan in there. He's obviously a Reformed guy, but he loves having a Wesleyan in there. There's a guy who's Pentecostal in the group and a couple Baptists, and so it's a really very eclectic group. But here's the thing: is it's gonna take all kinds of churches to reach a city like that. It isn't going to be one group. But we have an opportunity now as a Wesleyan church to come in.
Sure.
And obviously we have Wesleyan churches in New York City. So it's not that we don't have Wesleyan churches, but in Manhattan, in that center city context where there are very few believers, we don't have anything. We don't have a church like that at this point. And so another thing that's been great is all of these Wesleyan pastors who are already in the city are just cheerleading us and are partnering with us. Our membership is at Dr. Anthony Graham's church, and so we go there once in a while, and they pray for us, and so the partnership is key, and we're seeing partnership in New York City like we've never seen in ministry before.
There is so much unity in the church in New York City because I think everybody realizes like we can't do this
we need each
ourselves.
other.
And people say, hey, you can plant a church a street over from me, and I'm cool with that because, there might be 200,000 people in this one building. Like, let's do it. Let's just come to the table. We need you. We need each other. So
the program there with Keller, I'm sure it's demanding, but there has to be a sense of safety net with that too, of being resourced at a positive side of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They're generous. We get to go through the program, and it's 3 years. They'll walk with us for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's pretty
great.
amazing.
Yeah.
And so we'll roll into a program called Incubator here in the fall. That's more of an intensive for while we're launching the church, and they continue the training. And so that's free of charge. The possibility for grants. I don't know if you're familiar with Keller's Rise campaign. But it's essentially his newest campaign. They're trying to raise millions of dollars to plant urban churches because they want to see that 5%, evangelical in Center City move to the 15 over the next 10 years. So pretty amazing.
So look at we have the official. We'll cut to this camera here. We have all the literature, and so let me just say to you and to our viewers, if they want to support you through prayer and through finances, where can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so our website is now up and running, and it is reslifenyc.com, RESLIFENYC.com. So that's a great place to start.
Okay.
And you'll find our email on there.
They
Did you say anything else?
Contact us through there. But we're definitely looking for prayer support, financial support, and then church partnerships as well. There are opportunities to bring teams to help canvass the neighborhood.
Sure.
Our neighborhood, the Upper East Side, 250,000 people live in that neighborhood. 60,000 people per square mile, just a very dense area, and there's a lot of work to be done. So plenty of partnership opportunities in a variety of ways. So you can fill out the contact form on the website. We'll follow up with you. Absolutely.
Heath asked our last guest, Corey, if there's one thing that people could pray about, a single thing, what would that be for you guys?
Yeah.
For us personally, or for the ministry?
Well, listen. Here's what Corey said. I'm gonna pull the pastor card and give 2 things. So,
Yeah,
so you
nice.
could do one of each if you
Nice.
want to.
You know, I think I would say overall, just we're gonna do 3. We're gonna say pray for open doors.
Okay.
Pray for
boldness, spiritual authority in that context.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then pray for we talked about this. What was the third one?
What was it? Come on, we have a third
It's
one.
been a long day.
No,
I
we
know.
understand.
Boldness and
boldness,
and
open doors
for sure.
Pray for our family for protection.
Yeah.
You know?
That was
So,
the one.
We have a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old,
Yeah.
7th grade, 5th grade.
Huge. Yeah, huge in their
Yeah.
lives. Well, Brandon, thank you so much
you.
for taking time out of your schedule. And I know it has been a long day, so appreciate so much you taking time out. I want to say to all of our listeners out there, thanks so much for those of you that have joined us tonight. Those of you that have been active in the chat room, continue to send your pictures of how you're viewing General Conference. Tomorrow we start our business sessions, and it will be a historic day in our denomination. Tomorrow we will choose a new general superintendent, so keep it right here. We'll be live. I think we start streaming at 8:30. A technical producer, yes, 8:30 tomorrow morning. So we'll be here bright and early. Who would you rather see than us at 8:30 in the morning? Hey, thanks, everyone. Goodbye. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.